Hey guys, Travis Gillespie here. Today we're going to look at converting time and temperature, so let's get started. We want to convert 2 hours and 5 minutes to only minutes. So let's ask ourselves a fact real quick. What do we know about time? Well, I know for every 1 hour there are 60 minutes. So in every hour we have 60 minutes, and let's ask ourselves, well, how could we get to 2 hours? Well, if I double 1 hour, I get 2 hours. So let's just double 60 minutes. That's the same as multiplying by 2. So if I multiply 60 times 2, well, I get 120. Let's go ahead and write that down right here. So I'm going to put 120 minutes is equivalent to 60 times 2, or 60 minutes doubled. But I'm not finished, because 120 minutes only represents 2 hours. I've got an additional 5 minutes I've got to tack on to 120 minutes. So we've got 120 plus 5 minutes. So 120 plus 5, that gives us a value of 125. So 2 hours and 5 minutes is equivalent to 125 minutes. Okay, so let's go to this next problem real quick. I'm just going to get a new pen, and we want to convert from 195 minutes to hours only. Well, the quick way, I'm using mental math here, is to divide by 60. Because I know that every hour has 60 minutes in it. If I divide 195 minutes by 60 minutes, well, that will just convert it straight into hours only. But how did I get here? Let me show you the actual root. So let's go back and ask ourselves, what do we know? We know for every 1 hour there are 60 minutes. I'm going to rewrite that below as a conversion factor. So I'm going to write 1 hour is equivalent to 60 minutes. Or I could rewrite this as 60 minutes. For every 60 minutes, there's 1 hour. Put a 1 hour here. So these are known as conversion factors. A conversion factor, it's a fraction written where there are two different sets of units, in this case hours and minutes. The values might be different, but they represent the same number. 1 hour is the same as 60 minutes. So that's a conversion factor. Two sets of units, but their quantities are the same. So we have two different sets of conversion factors to choose from to calculate in with 195 minutes. But which one do we choose? Well, we're about to use something known as dimensional analysis. I'm just going to write DA for short right now. And dimensional analysis, it's just a really fancy way of saying, you know what, we want to take one set of units and convert it to another set of units. And we're going to use conversion factors to help us along the way. That's all dimensional analysis is. All right, let's change pens. And right now we're going to look at how we can use dimensional analysis. Well, I have 195 minutes. And I want to cancel out or get rid of minutes and convert it to hours. Well, if I were to multiply 195 by one of these conversion factors, so I'm going to put a multiplication symbol down, and then I've got to decide, will I choose this conversion factor or this conversion factor? So let's just write a fraction bar down real quick. Well, look at the set of units you're starting with. You're starting with minutes. Well, I want to get rid of the units minutes. So let's get rid of minutes here. And the only way I can cancel this out is if minutes or the same set of units appear in the denominator of your conversion factor that you're multiplying by. Well, which conversion factor has minutes in the denominator? This one does. And it tells us, well, let's plug the other set of units, hours, on top. So I'm just matching values now. 1 hour will go on top, and 60 minutes will go below on bottom. Okay, so whenever you have this set up to where the units you're starting with, in this case minutes, are the same as the units in the denominator that you're multiplying by, in this case again minutes, well, they cancel each other out. So in a second I'm going to cancel out just the units. Notice that I'm saying just the units only. But let's think of 195 as a fraction real quick. Well, that would be 195 over 1. So I've got 195 minutes in the numerator, and it's multiplying into 1 hour over 60 minutes, and 60 minutes is in the denominator. So these units are on opposite sides of one another. One's in the numerator, one's in the denominator, and we can cancel these units out now. From here, all I want to do is multiply straight through on top, multiply straight through on bottom. So 195 times 1 is 195. 1 times 60 gives us a value of 60. Before we calculate any further, let's backtrack to the start. Remember earlier when we said we're going to take 195 and divide by 60? Well, we've done the same thing here. And this 60 would actually represent 60 minutes. So these units, minutes and minutes, would cancel out. Let's just erase that one there and calculate what 195 divided by 60 is. Well, that is equivalent to 3.25, or as a fraction, that would be 3 1/4. Now, what were the units that we were trying to convert to? Well, that's hours. Also, if we were to go back to our dimensional analysis, the only set of units left over in our conversion factors is hours. So we're left with hours. I would plug them in here or here for 3 1/4 hours or 3.25 hours. Let's go ahead and just box these up. So 195 minutes is equivalent to 3 1/4 hours here. Okay, let's look at this next problem. We have 3 hours is equivalent to, well, how many seconds? Okay, so let's just think about this again. We need a few more sets of conversion factors. We want to convert from hours all the way to seconds. Well, let's think about all the different units that are in between hours to seconds. So we'd have to convert from hours down to minutes down to seconds. In the long run, you're going to learn some tricks where you can bypass some of these middle sets of units if you memorize other facts, but we're not going to get into that today. So we want to convert from 1 hour to minutes. Well, we know for every 1 hour, there are 60 minutes, or the reverse, and we can rewrite that again, or there are 60 minutes per 1 hour. Also, we want to convert from minutes to seconds. Well, we know for every 1 minute, there are 60 seconds in 1 minute. Or the reverse, there are 60 seconds per 1 minute. So I have conversion factor 1 and conversion factor 2 that we're going to use to convert from hours down to minutes down to seconds. So now let's use dimensional analysis. Just going to carry that on down. So let's ask ourselves, what are we starting with? We're starting with 3 hours. So I'm starting with 3 hours. And before I plug any values in, let's just set up our conversion factors. I'm going to multiply by my first set of conversion factors, which will take us down to minutes. And then I'm going to multiply by my second conversion factor, which should take us down to seconds. So we've converted from hours down to minutes down to seconds. But what sets of units go in the numerator? What sets of units go in the denominator for both conversion factors? Well, let's go to the start. What set of units do we want to get rid of first? We want to cancel out hours. So guess what goes in the denominator for this conversion factor here? Hours will go in the denominator, and we're trying to convert to minutes, so minutes will convert or be plugged into the numerator. Now, let's ask ourselves, for the second conversion factor, we're trying to convert to seconds, and we want to cancel out the minutes in this conversion factor here. So guess what goes in the denominator here? Minutes. Seconds will go on top. An easy trick to remember here is for whatever set of units precede the units you're looking at, so minutes here, so whatever comes before it, well, whatever set of units are in the numerator, those units will reappear in the denominator of your next conversion factor. Okay, before we plug any values in, let's just go ahead and make sure we set this up correctly. So hours should cancel out first, minutes should cancel out second, and you're left with seconds at the very end. Okay, it looks like it's checking out. So let's go ahead and plug values in. The first conversion factor, we're looking for minutes on top, hours on bottom. So in our first set of conversion factors, we have minutes on top, 60 minutes per 1 hour. We're going to plug 60 on top here and 1 on bottom. Okay, for this next conversion factor, we're looking for seconds on top, minutes on bottom, and let's go to our second set of conversion factors. Well, we have 60 seconds on top per 1 minute on bottom, so we're going to plug 60 on top again and 1 on bottom. Now 3 as a fraction, or 3 hours, if we were to have written that as a fraction, it would be 3 over 1. So remember, when multiplying fractions, you always multiply straight through on the top, or the numerator, and straight through on the bottom in the denominator. So 3 times 60 gives us a value of 180. I'm just going to write that below in a new color. So we have 3 times 60 is 180. 1 times 1 is 1. Now we're going to multiply by 60 over 1. So 60 over 1. So let's multiply straight through in the numerator again. 180 times 60 gives us a value of 10,800. And if we multiply straight through in the denominator, 1 times 1, well, that's 1. Well, do I really need 1 in the denominator of this fraction? No, we can just kind of hide it and pretend it's not there. So let's erase it, and we're left with 10,800. What are the only sets of units that are left in our dimensional analysis, or our conversion factors? It is S. So we're going to put S down here and see if it checks out. Yes, it checks out because we're trying to convert to seconds at the end. So let's go ahead and just box this information up.